Lucifer, history and legend. Origin and etymology. Lucifer's name comes from the Latin term lux, light, and fere, to bear, meaning light bringer or morning star. In classical mythology, this term referred to the planet Venus when it appeared as the morning star before dawn. However, in Christian theology, Lucifer became associated with the figure of Satan, the fallen angel who rebelled against God. Lucifer's transformation from a symbol of light to one of darkness began with biblical and early Christian texts. The most influential reference comes from the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament, Isaiah 14 verse 12, where a passage that originally referred to the Babylonian king was later interpreted by early Christian theologians to represent the fall of Satan. How you have fallen from heaven, morning star, son of the dawn. This was the moment when Lucifer, once a being of great beauty and power, was cast out of heaven for his pride and defiance. Role in mythology and theology. In Christian theology, Lucifer was once the most radiant and beautiful of God's angels, often described as a cherub or an archangel. However, his pride led him to desire equality with God. In response to his rebellion, God cast him out of heaven. Lucifer then became Satan, the adversary, and ruler of hell. His fall from grace is seen as the ultimate cautionary tale of pride and defiance against divine authority. This story of Lucifer's rebellion and fall is also echoed in John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost, published in the 17th century. In this work, Lucifer famously declares, "Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven," symbolizing his choice to rule over his own domain rather than submit to God's authority. Milton's portrayal of Lucifer is one of complexity. He is a tragic figure, both charismatic and prideful, embodying both heroism and rebellion, but also serving as the source of evil. Legend and folklore. Lucifer's story has grown beyond its biblical origins into a wide array of legends and folklore across cultures. The War in Heaven. One of the most well-known stories is the war between Lucifer and God. Lucifer, having gathered a group of rebellious angels, sought to overthrow God. The battle culminated in his defeat and expulsion from heaven. Along with his fellow fallen angels, Lucifer was cast into hell, where he became the ruler of this infernal realm. This tale of cosmic conflict has been retold in numerous religious texts and theological works. The morning star. In some traditions, particularly pre-Christian ones, Lucifer is seen as a symbol of enlightenment and knowledge. In Roman mythology, Lucifer was simply the morning star, and his identity was not associated with evil. This positive interpretation contrasts with the Christian view, which focuses on his fall from grace and his transformation into Satan. Lucifer as Prometheus. In some interpretations, Lucifer is compared to Prometheus, the figure from Greek mythology who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity. In this sense, Lucifer can be seen as a bringer of light and knowledge, but one who is punished for his defiance of divine authority. Cultural impact. Lucifer's story has deeply influenced Western culture, shaping literature, art, and modern interpretations of rebellion and freedom. John Milton's Paradise Lost remains one of the most famous depictions of Lucifer, casting him as a tragic antihero. Other literary works, such as Goethe's Faust, also explore the figure of Lucifer or Mephistopheles, a devil who tempts the protagonist with knowledge and power. In modern popular culture, Lucifer appears in various forms. From television shows like Lucifer, where he is depicted as a charismatic and conflicted figure, to films, books, and music, the name and image of Lucifer continue to fascinate audiences. He is often portrayed as a symbol of rebellion, freedom, and defiance, sometimes taking on a more sympathetic or complex role, rather than being seen solely as a representation of evil. Summary: Lucifer, once the radiant light-bringer, has evolved into one of the most iconic and complex figures in theology, mythology, and popular culture. His story is one of rebellion, pride, and ultimate fall, serving as both a cautionary tale and a symbol of defiance. Whether seen as the ruler of hell, a tragic figure, or a misunderstood bringer of light, Lucifer's legacy endures across centuries of storytelling and interpretation. Beelzebub, history and legend. Origin and etymology. Beelzebub is a name that has been associated with demonology and ancient religions. The name Beelzebub is derived from the Hebrew Baal-zebub, which translates to Lord of the Flies. This term was originally used by the Philistines to refer to their god Baal, a deity worshipped in ancient Canaan. In biblical literature, Baal was often depicted as a false god, and his name became synonymous with idolatry and evil. In Christian demonology, Beelzebub is considered one of the 7 princes of hell and is sometimes equated with Satan himself. Over time, the name Beelzebub came to be used to refer to a powerful demon or the devil, reflecting the early Christian efforts to demonize pagan deities. Role in demonology. Beelzebub is often depicted as a powerful demon who holds a high rank in the hierarchy of hell. According to Christian demonology, Beelzebub is one of the chief lieutenants of Lucifer, and his name is frequently invoked in tales of possession and exorcism. He is often described as a prince or king of hell, commanding legions of demons and wielding considerable influence over them. In the 16th century, Beelzebub's name became more prominent in European witchcraft trials, where he was believed to be the demon that witches would summon to do their bidding. Theologians and demonologists like John Milton in Paradise Lost also referenced Beelzebub, portraying him as one of the fallen angels who rebelled against God. Legend and folklore. One of the most famous stories involving Beelzebub comes from the New Testament in the Bible, where he is mentioned as the Prince of Demons. In the Gospel of Matthew 12:24-27, the Pharisees accused Jesus of casting out demons by the power of Beelzebub. Jesus counters their accusation by saying that a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand, implying that it would be illogical for Satan to cast out his own demons. In medieval Europe, Beelzebub was often depicted as a grotesque figure with flies buzzing around him, symbolizing his connection to decay, corruption, and pestilence. The association with flies likely comes from the interpretation of his name, Lord of the Flies, and it highlights his role as a corrupting influence in both the physical and spiritual worlds. Cultural impact. Beelzebub has left a significant mark on popular culture, literature, and art. He has been depicted in numerous works of fiction, often as a symbol of ultimate evil. For example, in John Milton's Paradise Lost, Beelzebub is portrayed as one of the leading fallen angels who debates with Satan over their next course of action after being cast out of heaven. In modern culture, Beelzebub is sometimes referenced in horror films, novels, and music, often as a representation of malevolent power or a personification of the devil. The name also appears in rituals and literature related to occult practices. Summary. Beelzebub, originally a deity in ancient Canaanite religion, became one of the most feared and reviled figures in Christian demonology. As a powerful prince of hell, he is often associated with corruption, flies, and the devil himself. His story has permeated various aspects of culture and religion, making him a lasting symbol of demonic influence and evil. Basilisk. History and legend. Origin and etymology. The basilisk is a mythical creature with origins in ancient Greek and Roman folklore. The name basilisk comes from the Greek word basiliskos, which means little king or kinglet. This name reflects the creature's supposed regal status among serpents. The basilisk was believed to be a serpent or a lizard-like creature, often described as the king of snakes due to its deadly nature and fearsome abilities. Role in mythology. The basilisk was often described as a small serpent, but its size was not what made it terrifying. Rather, it was the creature's lethal powers. According to ancient texts, the basilisk could kill with a single glance or by its breath, which was said to be so poisonous that it could wither plants and kill any living thing it encountered. In some accounts, the basilisk's very presence was enough to cause devastation, leaving a trail of death and desolation in its wake. The first detailed account of the basilisk comes from Pliny the Elder, a Roman naturalist, in his work Natural History, circa 79 AD. Pliny described the basilisk as a small snake, no more than 12 fingers in length, but with the power to destroy all life around it. He noted that even the ground it slithered on would become infertile. Legend and folklore. One of the most famous legends surrounding the basilisk is that it was born from a serpent's egg, hatched by a rooster. This peculiar origin story added to the creature's mystique and contributed to the belief that the basilisk was not just any ordinary snake, but a supernatural being with unnatural powers. In medieval European folklore, the basilisk's legend evolved, and it was often depicted as a hybrid creature combining features of a serpent, a rooster, and sometimes even a dragon. The belief in the basilisk's deadly abilities persisted, with many stories describing how entire villages were laid to waste by its mere presence. Interestingly, it was also believed that the basilisk could be defeated by a weasel, as the weasel was immune to the basilisk's lethal powers. This led to the practice of using weasels to hunt and kill basilisks in folklore. Another famous legend tells of the only safe way to kill a basilisk, by showing it its own reflection. According to this tale, the basilisk's deadly gaze would be turned back upon itself if it saw its reflection in a mirror, causing the creature to die instantly. Cultural impact. The basilisk has appeared in various forms throughout literature and popular culture. In medieval bestiaries, the basilisk was often used as a symbol of sin and the dangers of pride, due to its regal title and deadly powers. In modern times, the basilisk has been featured in numerous fantasy novels, movies, and video games, often portrayed as a deadly and near unbeatable foe. One of the most famous modern references to the basilisk is in J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, where a giant basilisk is unleashed upon Hogwarts, capable of killing anyone who looks directly into its eyes. Summary: the basilisk, a mythical serpent with the power to kill with a glance or breath, has captured the imagination of people for centuries. From its origins in ancient Greece and Rome to its place in medieval folklore, the basilisk's legend has evolved but always retained its association with death and danger. Whether viewed as a symbol of ultimate peril or a fascinating mythical creature, the basilisk remains one of the most intriguing figures in the world of mythology. Origin and etymology. The word vampire is believed to have originated from the Slavic word vampir, which spread throughout Eastern Europe in the 18th century. The term refers to undead creatures who rise from their graves to feed on the blood of the living. However, the concept of vampiric beings dates back much further, appearing in ancient cultures across the globe. Mesopotamian, Roman, and Greek mythology all contain creatures that share traits with the modern vampire, such as draining life from the living. The most recognizable form of the vampire legend comes from Eastern European folklore, particularly from regions like Romania, Serbia, and Hungary. In these tales, vampires were often described as the reanimated corpses of people who died prematurely or under suspicious circumstances. These vampires were believed to prey on the blood or life force of the living, leading to the spread of illness, death, and supernatural fear. Vampire in Eastern European folklore. In Eastern European traditions, vampires were typically seen as bloated, ruddy-skinned corpses rather than the sleek, pale aristocrats often depicted in modern media. They were thought to rise from their graves at night to drain the blood of their victims, leading to a variety of superstitious practices to prevent vampirism. People would stake suspected vampires through the heart, burn the corpses, or remove the head to ensure that they would not rise again. Romania, particularly the region of Transylvania, became synonymous with vampires largely due to the influence of later literature, but the belief in vampires existed in many Slavic and Balkan cultures. One of the most famous vampire figures in folklore was strigoi, a term used in Romanian folklore to describe the restless spirits of the dead who return to life to drink human blood. The vampire legend in literature. Vampires rose to literary prominence in the 18th century when reports of vampire sightings in Eastern Europe spread to Western Europe. These stories sparked a wave of vampire hysteria and became the inspiration for early literary works. The first significant vampire novel was The Vampire, 1819, written by John Polidori, which introduced the aristocratic vampire Lord Ruthven, a figure that would greatly influence future depictions of vampires. However, the most famous and enduring literary portrayal of a vampire is Count Dracula from Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1897. Stoker's novel cemented many of the characteristics now associated with vampires, such as their aversion to sunlight, need for blood, and ability to transform into bats or wolves. Dracula's character was partially inspired by Vlad the Impaler, a 15th century ruler of Wallachia known for his brutal reign and rumored vampiric tendencies. Legend and folklore. The vampire story is rich with cultural variations and interpretations, but several key elements have remained consistent across different legends. Blood drinking. In nearly all vampire myths, vampires are creatures that sustain themselves by drinking the blood of the living. Blood is often seen as a life force, and by consuming it, the vampire extends its unnatural life while weakening its victims. Immortality and undeath. Vampires are undead, meaning they have returned from death in some form. They are often portrayed as immortal beings who cannot die from natural causes, though they may have specific weaknesses such as sunlight, silver, or holy relics. Transformation. In various legends, vampires possess the ability to transform into animals such as bats, wolves, or mist, enabling them to escape detection or travel unnoticed. Weaknesses. While vampires are formidable creatures, they are traditionally vulnerable to sunlight, which can destroy them, and to items such as garlic, crosses, and holy water, which can repel them. Turning others. Vampires are often depicted as having the ability to create more vampires by biting or killing their victims, thus spreading vampirism. This process can sometimes be depicted as a curse or infection passed on to the victim. Vampire hysteria and beliefs. During the 18th century, Vampire hysteria spread throughout Eastern Europe, leading to exhumations and rituals meant to ward off vampirism. Many believed that diseases such as tuberculosis and plague were caused by vampires, as these illnesses caused victims to waste away, seemingly drained of life. In response, people would exhume corpses and perform rituals like staking them through the heart, burning, or beheading to prevent the dead from rising again. One famous case occurred in 1725, when a Serbian peasant named Peter Plagojavac was reported to have died and returned as a vampire, attacking his family members. His grave was opened, and his body was found with fresh blood on his lips, leading locals to stake him and burn his body. This incident, along with similar ones, spread vampire lore across Europe. Modern depictions. In modern popular culture, vampires have evolved from horrifying creatures of folklore into more complex characters with varying traits. While traditional traits like blood drinking and immortality remain, modern vampires are often depicted with more human characteristics, making them more relatable or even sympathetic. In literature and film, vampires have become iconic figures in the horror and fantasy genres. Modern portrayals include everything from fearsome predators to tragic figures burdened by immortality, as seen in Anne Rice's The Vampire Chronicles and films like Interview with the Vampire. Vampires have also been depicted as romantic figures, such as in the Twilight series, where vampires struggle with their supernatural nature and human emotions. Summary: vampires are among the most enduring and adaptable figures in mythology, with roots that stretch across centuries and cultures. From their origins in Eastern European folklore to their transformation into literary and cinematic icons, vampires continue to fascinate and terrify. Whether portrayed as bloodthirsty monsters or tragic immortals, the legend of the vampire remains a powerful symbol of life, death, and the supernatural. Origin and etymology. The word succubus comes from the Latin word succuba, meaning paramour or to lie beneath. In medieval European folklore, a succubus is a demon that takes on the form of a beautiful woman to seduce men, particularly during their sleep. The male counterpart of a succubus is known as an incubus, who similarly seduces women. The concept of the succubus likely has roots in ancient civilizations. Early beliefs in supernatural entities, especially female spirits who would visit and torment humans, can be traced back to Sumerian, Mesopotamian, and Jewish mythology. One of the earliest known references to a succubus-like figure comes from the legend of Lilith, who is sometimes described as a female demon or night spirit. In some Jewish texts, Lilith is said to have been Adam's first wife, who later became a demon after leaving him. Lilith's mythology includes her taking on succubus-like traits, especially as a seducer of men and cause of nocturnal emissions. Role in mythology and folklore. In medieval and Renaissance demonology, the succubus was considered a dangerous and malevolent entity that preyed on men, draining them of their energy, vitality, or life force through sexual intercourse. The succubus was often depicted as a beautiful, seductive woman capable of luring men into temptation, but in reality, she was believed to be a demonic entity whose true form was often hideous, with features like bat wings, claws, or serpentine characteristics. One of the most notable aspects of the succubus legend is its ability to manipulate dreams. Men were believed to experience nocturnal emissions or sleep paralysis as a result of a succubus visitation. The succubus would feed on their life force, leaving them weak, ill, or even dead. These encounters were often blamed for feelings of fatigue, illness, or moral guilt after dreams of a sexual nature. In religious contexts, the succubus was also seen as a symbol of lust and sexual immorality, representing the dangers of succumbing to sinful desires. Religious authorities during the Middle Ages often used the story of the succubus as a moral warning about the dangers of uncontrolled lust and the perils of engaging in sexual acts outside of marriage. Legend and folklore. The legend of the succubus evolved over time, with different cultures contributing their own interpretations of the creature. Medieval Europe. During the Middle Ages, the succubus was viewed as a real and dangerous demon. Monks and priests were often warned of the temptations of succubi, who were believed to visit holy men to distract them from their spiritual paths. In some cases, men claimed to have been attacked by succubi, often describing these encounters as terrifying and physically draining. Jewish folklore. The figure of Lilith, sometimes considered the mother of all succubi, plays a significant role in Jewish folklore. According to legend, Lilith was created before Eve and became Adam's first wife. However, she refused to submit to him and left the Garden of Eden. In her exile, she became a demon who preyed on men, often in the form of a succubus. Christian demonology. In Christian demonology, the succubus is a fallen angel or demonic spirit that seduces men. These demons were believed to steal semen from their victims to produce demonic offspring, known as cambions. The offspring were thought to be half-human, half-demon creatures with extraordinary abilities. Art and literature. Succubi have been a recurring theme in art and literature throughout the centuries. They were depicted as dangerous, seductive, and sometimes tragic figures who could not escape their cursed existence. Over time, they have appeared in various works, from classical art to modern horror fiction, often as a symbol of sexual temptation and danger. Modern interpretations. In modern times, the succubus has evolved beyond its medieval demonology roots. The figure of the succubus appears in numerous pop culture references, often portrayed as a femme fatale or seductive supernatural creature in films, TV shows, and books. Modern depictions sometimes soften the demonic aspects of the succubus, presenting them as morally ambiguous characters who struggle with their nature rather than purely evil entities. For example, succubi appear in fantasy novels, video games, and TV shows as powerful, alluring characters with a dual nature, both demonic and sympathetic. In some interpretations, the succubus retains her predatory traits, while in others, she is portrayed as a tragic figure cursed with her powers and seeking redemption or escape from her nature. Summary. The succubus is a legendary demon known for seducing men in their sleep, draining their energy, and causing illness or death. Originating from ancient and medieval folklore, the succubus became a symbol of sexual temptation and moral danger. Although it was feared for its ability to control dreams and sap vitality, modern interpretations often present the succubus in more nuanced ways, highlighting the complexities of this age-old legend. Origin and etymology. The word incubus comes from the Latin word incubare, meaning to lie upon. In medieval European folklore, the incubus is a male demon that seduces or attacks women, usually while they are sleeping. The incubus is often seen as the counterpart to the succubus, a female demon who seduces men. The concept of the incubus is rooted in ancient beliefs that go back to Sumerian and Mesopotamian mythology. For instance, the Sumerian demon Lilu was known for tormenting women, a precursor to the incubus figure. The incubus legend was influenced by early Christian and Jewish beliefs, with the demon taking on a more malevolent role over time. In the Middle Ages, the incubus was believed to prey on women, causing sleep disturbances, nightmares, and even pregnancy through supernatural means. Role in mythology and folklore. In medieval and Renaissance demonology, the incubus was believed to be a dangerous and malevolent force. It was often said that these demons would visit women in their sleep, sometimes disguising themselves as a loved one or a handsome stranger. The incubus was thought to drain energy from its victims, causing them to feel weak or ill upon waking. In some cases, repeated attacks by an incubus were blamed for physical ailments, infertility, or mental instability. Women who reported having vivid dreams of being visited by an incubus were often thought to be under demonic possession or cursed. In more severe cases, the incubus was said to impregnate its victims with demonic offspring known as cambions, who were thought to grow up with supernatural powers. The infamous witch hunts and trials during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance often involved accusations of being visited by incubi or succubi, fueling the fear and hysteria surrounding these creatures. In Christian demonology, incubi were viewed as fallen angels or demonic entities sent to tempt humans, leading them into sin and moral corruption. They were seen as a tool of the devil, who used them to corrupt women and draw them away from faith and virtue. Legend and folklore. Various legends and folklore surrounding the incubus include tales of their seductive and harmful nature. Medieval Europe. In medieval Europe, incubi were widely feared. Women who had dreams of being seduced or attacked by a mysterious figure often believed they were visited by an incubus. In some cases, entire villages would blame mysterious pregnancies or unexplained illnesses on these demonic beings. Priests and religious leaders were called upon to perform exorcisms or blessings to ward off incubi. Jewish folklore. Jewish folklore includes the figure of Lilith, often associated with the succubus. Lilith's demonic male counterparts were believed to be incubi. These demons, known as Shidim or Matzakim, were said to prey on women, causing physical and spiritual harm. The story of Saint Anthony. One famous legend involving an incubus concerns Saint Anthony, an early Christian monk who was tormented by demonic entities, including incubi. According to legend, the incubi attempted to seduce and distract him from his spiritual path, but he resisted through prayer and faith. Incubi and sleep paralysis. Many modern researchers believe that the legend of the incubus may have origins in sleep paralysis, a condition where a person is awake but unable to move, often experiencing hallucinations. These hallucinations can include a sense of being watched, suffocated, or physically attacked, which may have contributed to stories of incubi visiting people during the night. Cultural impact. The incubus has left a significant mark on Western culture and folklore, influencing depictions of malevolent and seductive supernatural entities. In literature, incubi have been used as metaphors for temptation, sin, and the dangers of uncontrolled desire. The figure of the incubus has appeared in various works of fiction, from Gothic novels to modern horror. In modern times, incubi have been featured in films, books, and television, often depicted as dark, seductive forces of evil. They are frequently shown as manipulative beings capable of controlling or influencing their victims' thoughts and desires. Their connection to nightmares and sleep disturbances remains central to many portrayals, reinforcing their original association with fear, helplessness, and demonic possession. Modern interpretations. Today, incubi are often seen as part of popular supernatural lore. They are regularly featured in fantasy and horror genres, depicted as seductive and dangerous entities. However, the incubus is sometimes portrayed in a more sympathetic or complex light, much like the succubus. Rather than simply being an evil force, modern stories may present the incubus as a tragic figure, caught between worlds or struggling with its own nature. In psychology, the legend of the incubus has been linked to explanations of sleep paralysis and nightmares, with scientific theories offering explanations for the terrifying experiences that people once attributed to demonic attacks. Summary: the incubus is a legendary demon in European folklore, known for seducing women in their sleep and causing physical and emotional harm. Rooted in ancient mythology and later shaped by medieval Christian beliefs, the incubus became a symbol of temptation, sin, and malevolent supernatural forces. Its terrifying legend persists in modern culture, where it continues to appear in literature, films, and psychological discussions about sleep disturbances and demonic possession. Hellhound. History and legend. Origin and etymology. The hellhound is a fearsome creature rooted in various European mythologies and folklore. The term hellhound refers to a supernatural dog, often associated with death, the afterlife, or the underworld. The word hell in hellhound indicates its connection to infernal or otherworldly realms, while hound emphasizes its canine nature. Hellhounds are frequently depicted as large, black dogs with glowing red or yellow eyes, shaggy fur, and an aura of malevolence. In some traditions, they are considered omens of death, guardians of the underworld, or even harbingers of doom. Role in mythology. Hellhounds appear in various mythological and cultural contexts across Europe. Norse mythology. In Norse mythology, Garmr is a giant hellhound that guards the gates of Hell, the realm of the dead. Garmr is often associated with Ragnarok, the end of the world, where it is said to break free and fight the god Tyr. Celtic and British folklore. In British and Celtic legends, hellhounds are often referred to as Black Shuck, Barghest, or the Gytrash. These spectral dogs are said to roam the moors and graveyards, sometimes protecting ancient burial sites or seeking out lost souls. Black Shuck, in particular, is a well-known hellhound said to appear as a harbinger of death, often described as an enormous black dog with fiery eyes. Greek mythology. Cerberus, the multi-headed hound of Hades, is perhaps the most famous hellhound. This monstrous dog guards the gates of the underworld, preventing the dead from leaving and the living from entering. Cerberus is depicted as a terrifying beast with 3 heads, a serpent's tail, and a mane of snakes. Legend and folklore. Hellhounds have been a staple of horror and ghost stories for centuries. In many tales, the appearance of a hellhound is a sure sign that someone is about to die. The creature is often said to appear at crossroads, graveyards, or sites of violent deaths. Its howl is believed to be an omen of impending doom, and those who hear it are often said to have only a short time left to live. One famous British legend tells of the hellhound Black Shuck attacking a church in Suffolk in 1577. According to the legend, The beast burst through the church doors during a thunderstorm, killing several parishioners before vanishing. This event supposedly left claw marks on the church door, which are still visible today. In some folklore, hellhounds serve as guardians of hidden treasures or as protectors of the supernatural. They are often tasked with hunting down and punishing those who have escaped from the underworld or committed grave sins. In other stories, they are considered to be the spectral companions of witches or other practitioners of dark magic. Cultural impact. Hellhounds have become iconic figures in literature, film, and popular culture. They are often depicted as monstrous dogs that are nearly impossible to escape from or defeat. In J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, the Grim is a large black dog that is considered an omen of death, clearly inspired by the Hellhound legends. In modern supernatural fiction, hellhounds are frequently portrayed as servants or enforcers of demonic beings, summoned to track down and eliminate their master's enemies. They are often shown to be incredibly powerful, with supernatural abilities such as invisibility, teleportation, or the power to pass through solid objects. Summary: the Hellhound is a powerful and terrifying creature in European mythology, representing death, the underworld, and the supernatural. From the Norse Garm to the British Black Shuck, these spectral dogs have appeared in numerous legends as omens, guardians, and hunters. Their fearsome reputation has made them enduring figures in both folklore and popular culture, where they continue to inspire tales of terror and mystery. Origin and etymology. The Kraken is a legendary sea monster from Scandinavian folklore, often described as a gigantic, tentacled creature capable of dragging entire ships beneath the waves. The name Kraken likely comes from the Old Norse word kraki, which means something twisted or crooked, and has come to symbolize one of the most fearsome sea monsters in maritime myth. The first written accounts of the Kraken date back to the 13th century, notably in the Orvarodr saga, an Icelandic saga about a sea monster referred to as the Hafguffa that shares similarities with the Kraken. However, the most detailed descriptions of the Kraken come from Norwegian folklore in the 18th century, when sailors and fishermen claim to have encountered the terrifying creature in the waters off the coast of Norway and Greenland. Role in mythology and folklore. In Scandinavian legends, the Kraken was said to dwell off the coasts of Norway and Greenland, lurking deep in the ocean and rising to the surface when it sensed the presence of ships. The creature was described as being so massive that its body could be mistaken for an island, and its tentacles could wrap around entire vessels, dragging them to their doom beneath the ocean. Some accounts even described the Kraken as being large enough to create whirlpools that would sink ships caught in their grasp. Fishermen feared the Kraken, not only because of its size and power, but also because it was believed to be able to summon schools of fish around it. This led to the belief that where the Kraken was sighted, great quantities of fish could be found, at a terrible risk to those seeking to catch them. The Kraken is also associated with the idea of treacherous waters and sudden, unpredictable storms. These natural phenomena, common in the rough seas of Northern Europe, were often attributed to the wrath of the Kraken, who could create giant waves and tumultuous currents by merely moving through the water. Legend and folklore. 18th century Norwegian folklore. In the 18th century, Erik Pontoppidan, a Danish-Norwegian naturalist and bishop, wrote extensively about the Kraken in his work The Natural History of Norway, 1752. He described it as a creature so large that it could rise from the depths and create whirlpools powerful enough to sink even the sturdiest ships. Pontoppidan's account of the Kraken solidified the creature's place in folklore and led to widespread fear among sailors. Icelandic sagas. Earlier Icelandic texts, such as the Konungsskuggsja, King's Mirror, written around 1250, also mention monstrous sea creatures that resembled the Kraken. These creatures were believed to live in the cold, dark waters of the northern seas, surfacing only to devour men and ships alike. The Kraken in later folklore, as maritime exploration and trade increased in the 17th and 18th centuries, the Kraken became a symbol of the unknown dangers that sailors might encounter while exploring the world's oceans. The Kraken also became intertwined with legends of other sea monsters, such as the Leviathan from biblical texts and the Greek Scylla and Charybdis. Kraken in literature and art. The Kraken has long captured the imagination of artists, writers, and sailors. In literature, one of the most famous depictions of the Kraken is in Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem The Kraken, 1830, which describes the creature as lying in the depths of the ocean, rising only at the end of days. This poem gives the Kraken an almost mythic, apocalyptic dimension, portraying it as a symbol of primal, unstoppable power. The Kraken has also featured prominently in modern literature, such as in Herman Melville's Moby Dick, where the monster serves as a symbol of the unknown and uncontrollable forces of nature. In visual art, the Kraken is often depicted as an enormous cephalopod with gigantic, writhing tentacles that wrap around ships, pulling them beneath the ocean. This image has been popularized in countless illustrations, paintings, and more recently, movies and video games. Modern interpretations. In modern times, the Kraken has taken on a new life in popular culture, particularly in films, television, and video games. It has appeared in various forms, often as a giant octopus or squid-like creature. In the 2006 film Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, for example, the Kraken is portrayed as a monstrous sea creature controlled by Davy Jones, capable of destroying ships with ease. Additionally, the Kraken has been featured in many video games, where it is often depicted as a formidable sea monster that players must defeat. Interestingly, scientists have speculated that the legend of the Kraken may have been inspired by sightings of real giant squids, Archetyphus, which can grow to enormous sizes and live in the deep oceans where human knowledge is limited. Summary: the Kraken is one of the most iconic sea monsters in mythology, with roots in Scandinavian folklore. Known for its immense size and destructive power, the Kraken has been feared by sailors for centuries. Though modern science attributes the Kraken legend to giant squids and the unpredictable nature of the sea, the creature remains a powerful symbol of the ocean's mysteries and dangers. From ancient sagas to modern pop culture, the Kraken's legend continues to inspire awe and fear. Origin and etymology. The Leviathan is a massive sea creature found in various religious and mythological traditions, particularly in Jewish, Christian, and ancient Near Eastern lore. The term Leviathan comes from the Hebrew word Leviathan, which means twisted or coiled. In biblical and mythological contexts, Leviathan is often depicted as a gigantic, serpentine sea monster symbolizing chaos, destruction, and untamed natural forces. In ancient Mesopotamian mythology, creatures similar to Leviathan include Tiamat, the primordial goddess of the ocean, who was defeated by the god Marduk. Similarly, the Canaanites had the sea serpent Lawton, which shared characteristics with the Leviathan. These ancient myths depict monstrous sea creatures as representatives of disorder, which the gods had to subdue to bring order to the world. Role in the Bible and religious texts. Leviathan is most famously mentioned in the Hebrew Bible, particularly in the book of Job, Psalms, and Isaiah. It is often portrayed as a terrifying sea creature that represents God's mastery over even the most fearsome and chaotic forces of nature. Leviathan is frequently used as a symbol of God's power to control the uncontrollable and to subdue even the most dangerous entities. Book of Job, Job 40:1. The most detailed description of Leviathan comes from the book of Job, where God speaks to Job and describes the creature in terms of its immense strength and terrifying appearance. In this passage, Leviathan is depicted as a sea monster with impenetrable scales, fiery breath, and immense power. The description highlights the creature's invincibility, as no man-made weapon could harm it. Psalm 74 verse 14 in the Psalms, Leviathan is portrayed as a multi-headed sea monster defeated by God. It was you who crushed the heads of Leviathan and gave it as food to the creatures of the desert. Here, the creature represents chaos, and its defeat is a demonstration of God's ability to bring order to the cosmos. Book of Isaiah, Isaiah 27 verse 1 in Isaiah, Leviathan symbolizes evil and chaos, which will be destroyed in the future by God. In that day, the Lord will punish with his sword, his fierce, great, and powerful sword. Leviathan the gliding serpent, Leviathan the coiling serpent. He will slay the monster of the sea. Leviathan in Jewish tradition. In Jewish apocalyptic literature, Leviathan takes on additional roles. The creature is often paired with Behemoth, a monstrous land creature, and Ziz, a gigantic bird. According to Jewish legend, Leviathan will be killed at the end of days, and its flesh will be served as a feast for the righteous in the Messianic age. Some texts, such as the Talmud, suggest that there were originally two Leviathans, a male and a female, but God killed the female to prevent them from reproducing, as their offspring would be too powerful and threaten the stability of creation. Leviathan in Christian thought. In Christian interpretations, Leviathan has been associated with the devil or Satan, representing the forces of evil and chaos that oppose God's divine order. The book of Revelation in the New Testament, though it doesn't mention Leviathan by name, depicts a great beast rising from the sea, often seen as a reflection of the earlier Leviathan myth. In Christian theology, Leviathan is sometimes interpreted as a symbol of sin, death, or the Antichrist, embodying the opposition to God's will and the divine plan. Legend and folklore. The Leviathan legend has been linked to seafaring cultures' fears of the deep and unknown oceans. In ancient times, many mariners told tales of enormous sea creatures that could destroy entire ships. These stories were often embellished with descriptions of creatures like the Leviathan, who would rise from the depths to drag sailors and their vessels into the abyss. The creature's size and power made it a common symbol for chaos, storms, and the unpredictable nature of the sea, which could bring sudden destruction without warning. Modern interpretations and influence. Leviathan has continued to influence art, literature, and pop culture. In Thomas Hobbes' 1651 book Leviathan, the sea monster serves as a metaphor for the state or a powerful sovereign. Hobbes uses the image of the Leviathan to represent a strong, centralized government necessary to maintain order in society. In modern fantasy literature and entertainment, Leviathan appears in various forms, usually as a monstrous sea creature or embodiment of chaos and destruction. It is featured in novels, films, television shows, and video games, often depicted as an unstoppable force from the depths of the ocean. For example, in the TV show Supernatural, Leviathans are ancient and powerful creatures that are released from purgatory and wreak havoc on Earth. In other media, Leviathan appears as a sea monster in various fantasy-themed books and games, where it embodies fearsome power and untamable nature. Summary: the Leviathan is a legendary sea monster symbolizing chaos, power, and destruction in biblical texts and ancient mythology. With its origins in the ancient Near East, the creature has become a symbol of the untamable forces of nature and divine mastery over the chaotic world. In religious and cultural traditions, Leviathan represents both the fears of the unknown and the awe-inspiring power of the divine. Its influence persists in modern literature and popular culture, where it continues to serve as a metaphor for great, uncontrollable forces. Origin and etymology. Baphomet is a complex figure with a mysterious and often misunderstood history. The name Baphomet first appeared in the context of the Knights Templar in the early 14th century. The term is believed to have derived from a corrupted form of Muhammad or Muhammad, reflecting medieval Europe's perception of Islam. However, Baphomet's modern associations as a symbol of occultism and Satanism did not emerge until much later. The Knights Templar, a Christian military order, were accused of heresy and worshipping a deity named Baphomet during the trials that led to their dissolution. Many scholars believe this was a fabricated charge by their enemies, but the name Baphomet has remained linked to dark rituals and mysticism ever since. Transformation into an occult symbol. In the 19th century, the French occultist Eliphas Levi transformed Baphomet into the image that is widely recognized today. Levi depicted Baphomet as a hermaphroditic, winged, goat-headed figure with a pentagram on its forehead, one arm raised and the other lowered, symbolizing the concept of duality. This depiction combined elements of the occult, alchemy, and esoteric knowledge, making Baphomet a symbol of balance between opposites, good and evil, male and female, and light and dark. Levi's illustration became iconic in occult circles and was later adopted by other movements. The Church of Satan, founded in 1966 by Anton Lavey, embraced Baphomet as a symbol of Satanism. The Baphomet pentagram, a goat's head inside an inverted five-pointed star, became one of the main symbols used by the organization, representing individualism, defiance, and liberation from traditional religious constraints. Legend and folklore. Although Baphomet is often associated with the occult and modern Satanism, there are few original legends or stories involving the figure. The accusations against the Knights Templar were likely based on misunderstandings or political motivations rather than actual worship of Baphomet. The Templars were said to have confessed under torture to worshipping a mysterious idol, but what this idol actually represented remains unclear. Levi's reinterpretation of Baphomet introduced a deeper mystical and symbolic dimension to the figure. His image of Baphomet was intended to illustrate the unity of opposites and the pursuit of esoteric wisdom, rather than a literal demon. In this context, Baphomet represents knowledge, spiritual enlightenment, and the reconciliation of conflicting forces. Despite this philosophical background, Baphomet has often been linked to devil worship and demonic imagery due to its goat-like appearance and association with Satanism. This popular perception, however, overshadows the more nuanced and esoteric symbolism that Baphomet originally embodied. Cultural impact. Baphomet has been featured prominently in modern culture, especially within the realms of occultism, witchcraft, and horror fiction. The figure's associations with Satanism and rebellion against conventional religious authority have made it a potent symbol in these contexts. Baphomet's image has appeared in literature, art, films, and music, often representing dark or forbidden knowledge. In recent years, Baphomet has also been the subject of legal and cultural debates. For example, the Satanic Temple commissioned a statue of Baphomet to be placed alongside other religious symbols in public spaces, sparking discussions about religious freedom and the separation of church and state. Summary: Baphomet is a powerful and enigmatic figure whose origins date back to the medieval period, but whose modern form was shaped by occultism in the 19th century. Often associated with the Knights Templar and later with Satanism, Baphomet has evolved into a symbol of duality, balance, and the pursuit of hidden knowledge. While frequently misunderstood as a purely demonic figure, Baphomet's deeper symbolism lies in the reconciliation of opposing forces, making it a complex and enduring figure in both myth and popular culture.